guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Cody Kavita. I'm an actress and a voiceover artist here in Los Angeles, California, and I also have 5 chronic illnesses, which I manage on a daily basis. Now, welcome to this week's video. I'm really happy to have you here. I am so excited because, as you can tell by the title of this video, today we are going to be making some Valentine's treats, and I really tried to put together different treats that are aesthetically pleasing but also really simple to make. Also, they are all going to be gluten-free, so if you are gluten-free, this is the video for you. And even if you're not gluten-free, I still think you're going to enjoy what I have prepared. Now, when it comes to the food for this video, I am doing actually a charcuterie board. When it comes to chronic illness, I find charcuterie boards to be a really easy way to entertain and host someone and still get that wow factor without you know, overextending yourself or without making yourself tired. So I really enjoy a humble charcuterie board. But before we get into the cooking, I do just really quick want to say thank you so much for all of the love on last week's video. If you missed that video, it was a Valentine's decorate with me. It was a craft and decorate with me, actually. I will link it at the end of this video, but in that video, I announced the launch of my very first coloring book, and I'm just blown away by all of the love and support. Thank you so much. Now, if you are interested in ordering my coloring book, Puffy Love, I will link it in the description box in this video. But also, as I mentioned in that video, later on in this video, I'm going to have the physical copy of Puppy Love, and I'm going to be coloring it with my best friend, Leslie. But yeah, I'm just so excited. Such an exciting time. And as I mentioned in that video, I also have another one coming out in just a little bit that is Y2K themed. So definitely keep your eye out for that. But yeah, without further ado, grab yourself a snack or a coffee and let's get into it. Now, starting off, can we take a moment to observe this massive strawberry that I got? Now, for this, you're going to need strawberries as well as candy melts in 2 different colors. I got pink and a classic chocolate brown. Now, you're going to want to melt your base color at 30-second intervals until it's nice and smooth and doesn't really have any chunks. Next, you're going to take your strawberry, and it's very important that it's dry when you do this. Otherwise, the candy melt will just slide right off. Now, I'm gripping the stem here. You might not want to do that just because the stem can break off, and if that makes you nervous, then you could also stick a skewer through the top of your strawberry and dip it that way. Now, you're just going to continue this process until you have your desired amount of strawberries, but it is important to note that you have to move pretty fast with this because the candy melt, it does tend to harden and solidify pretty quickly. Of course, if that happens, you could always pop it back in the microwave and try again, or some people have added coconut oil to their candy melts to keep it smooth for longer. Now, after you've dipped all of your base color, it's time to move on to your accent color. And I like to use a plastic baggie as a makeshift piping bag. You could also use a roll of parchment paper. This sheet that I have here was actually my last sheet of parchment paper, otherwise I would have done that. But go ahead and pour your melted chocolate into your piping bag and squish it around a little so you can get rid of any air bubbles. Snip off the top and you are ready to drizzle. Go. Super simple, but always a classic and so elegant chocolate covered strawberries. Now I'm gonna pop these in the fridge until it's time to serve. Moving on to our next snack, you're gonna slice a cucumber. You wanna make sure to make these slices pretty thick, but not too thick that they're hard to cut through, because basically you're going to take a small heart-shaped cookie cutter that's roughly the same size as your slice and punch that through. You'll continue this process until you get however many hearts you'd like, but the reason you want them to be kind of thick is because they need to hold the filling. We're making little sandwiches. So I'm taking my whipped Philadelphia cream cheese and using the same plastic piping bag hack. You could try and use a spoon here or a knife, but with the cucumbers, it does tend to slide around and kind of slide off. Now, after you've done that, you can go ahead and close your sandwiches. Optional, you could add everything but the bagel seasoning. I, for the life of me, couldn't find ours, but that's okay. And if you're wondering what's going to happen to the leftover cucumbers, do not worry. They will 100% be eaten. Next up are these super simple cheese hearts. Now, I could have used a block of cheese, but I saw that they had this pre-sliced cheese that was literally the same amount of money for the same amount of cheese. And with arthritis, any excuse to not have to get out a knife and cut, I'm gonna take. So I basically used the same cookie cutter and cut out these cute little heart shapes. And in case you are wondering what's gonna happen to the leftover cheese, do not worry. There are plenty cheese monsters in my house, so this cheese is literally almost gone at this point. For this next treat, you're gonna need toothpicks as well as grape tomatoes and a paring knife. Now, I say grape tomatoes on purpose because you're going to need them to be kind of oblong. You're gonna basically cut the ends off at a relatively sharp angle. After that, you will join them together and use your toothpick to skewer them into a heart shape. Now, you might want to be careful here as you skewer your toothpick, but once you've done that, then you are good to go. I serve these up with mozzarella balls and balsamic glaze. You could totally put the mozzarella balls on the toothpicks as well, but I wanted the hearts to really stand out. Next, I got out my brie cheese. I love brie cheese, especially on a charcuterie board. I also grabbed my large heart-shaped cookie cutter and kind of made an indent in the top of the cheese. This is really more so we have a stencil to follow, because after I did that, I used my paring knife to cut out the heart shape, but also make a little bit of a well in the cheese. That's because we're going to be filling that well with jam. Now, I'm using jam that I had left over from Germany, but later on in this video, I'm actually going to be showing you a strawberry jam recipe, which I think would go really well with this. Once I was done with my cold treats, it was time to fire up the oven and start on our baked goods. I had this gluten-free puff pastry that I got at Sprouts, and I decided I would try it out for this video. Now, it comes with 3 sheets, and they are pretty rock solid, so I would let it sit for just a little bit so that you can easily cut through it. But I used my large heart-shaped cookie cutter and cut out 6 hearts. I'm gonna be making heart-shaped mini pizzas. Of course, I topped my pizzas with standard pizza toppings. For this, I kept it simple. I used tomato sauce that I made using tomato sauce as well as Italian seasoning, salt, and a little bit of sugar, but you can use whatever you'd like. And then I topped it off with mozzarella. Now, once those were in the oven, it was time to start on my sweet treat. So I got another sheet of puff pastry and used my knife to cut out 6 equal squares. Basically, I wanted to make these little love note envelope things. And so I cut out my squares, and once the pastry was a little soft and able to work with, I folded them into an envelope shape. Once I had that shape, I put some of my remaining jam into the center, and I used a little bit of water to secure everything. And then I popped everything into the oven. Now, in theory,
this should have worked. However, you will see in a few frames that it was a total fail. Complete fail. Largely because I realized later on that I used the wrong kind of pastry for this. So, if you have regular pastry that is not puff pastry, this should work out perfectly.
So I am all done with my prep work, and it is very hot in my kitchen. Here in California, it was like 70 something today. It is warm, but I'm really happy with how everything turned out. The envelopes, you know, we're just gonna ignore those. Better bakers probably would have a better time than I did. But yeah, other than that, I'm really happy with how everything turned out, and I am about to start coloring with Leslie, but before I do, look what's here! Puppy love! I am so happy with it. It is just, oh, what a dream. I don't even know if you can see it. It's quite blown out here. But yeah, I can't believe it. Like, holding it in person this is actually my first time holding it in person. This is really cool. Yeah. So you can order Puppy Love in the link in my bio, or not bio, we're not on Instagram. At the link down below in this video. I am really hot. I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy my iced matcha and color with Leslie.
Yeah, me and heat, we don't mix. But I did want to mention that Leslie also dropped a coloring book called Cozy Love, which you can see there on the table, and I'll be sure to link it in the description of this video. But yeah, overall, just had a really nice, chill afternoon coloring in our coloring books and enjoying some Valentine's treats.
Hi. So, it's a few days later, and I was in the middle of editing this video, and I'm not gonna lie, it really bothered me that the envelopes didn't work out, and I kept thinking to myself, like, what did I do wrong? Why did this not work? And I realized, puff pastry. It's in the name. It's gonna puff up. It's not gonna hold its shape. So I was pretty much doomed from the start. So I figured today what I'm gonna do is try one more time. I have one more sheet of puff pastry left, and I have a new design picked out. So fingers crossed it works, because like I said, it's my last sheet and I'm not going and getting more. But then I also realized that I mentioned strawberry matchas, but I didn't show you how I made them, so I am going to show you a more in-depth video, or an in-depth video in general, I guess, because I didn't show them, how I make my strawberry matchas. So I'm going to go ahead and get these strawberries washed and ready to go, and we will get to cooking.
Now for my strawberry jam recipe, you're gonna need a pack of strawberries. You're gonna cut those into chunks. It doesn't really matter what size, as long as everything is kind of roughly the same size. That way it all cooks evenly. After you've done that, you're gonna go ahead and put it on the stove at medium heat. Now, while that's heating up, you will add in your sugar. A lot of jam recipes call for a ton of sugar, like a cup and a half. That is way too much for me, so I just add 1/3 cup, and that is plenty. Next, I'm gonna add in a lemon, or the juice of a lemon. It's about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And I also added in some of the zest from the lemon, just because I like a more tart strawberry jam, but if you're not into the tart stuff, don't add the zest. Now I'm just going to continue stirring that until everything comes to a boil. And while it's doing that, I'm going to reserve some of the liquid that I'm going to use later for my strawberry matcha. But yeah, basically bring everything to a boil. You'll notice it start to thicken, and once that happens, turn your heat down and let it simmer like this for about 25 to 30 minutes. And you'll know it's ready when it coats the back of a spoon.
Wow, that's good. That is so good. So you know how I said I had one sheet of puff pastry left? Yeah, I forgot that I cut hearts in that sheet. So in reality, I actually only have one square of puff pastry. But I'm still gonna try it, man. I am determined to make this work. Just, you know, when you do it, you'll probably use more. You'll have more puff pastry than I do, but yeah, it's all riding on this one square, no pressure. Yeah.
Raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by gluten-free puff pastry. Wow, what a struggle, but I think we did finally get to a good place with it. Now, I cut out a heart-shaped stencil with paper. I didn't use my heart-shaped cookie cutters for this just because they weren't quite large enough for the size that I was going for. But I used my paring knife and traced out a heart. And then I kind of smoothed out the edges with my fingers. After that, I then got a spoon and started pressing into the pastry. I pressed down with the back of the spoon into the middle of the pastry here for two reasons. One, it's going to give us a nice little well to put our toppings in. But two, pressing down this part of the pastry will prevent it from rising too much, so our toppings won't spill everywhere once the pastry has puffed up. Next, I got out my cream cheese and my piping bag trick and went ahead and piped kind of around in a rough heart shape. I tried to avoid putting too much in the middle just because that's where our strawberry jam is going to go. And when it comes to the jam, I really only added about 2 spoonfuls. You don't need that much, mainly because once it's in the oven, it will kind of spread out. So less is definitely more. Once my pastry was in the oven, it was time to move on to my iced matcha. Now I'm using oat milk, but you can use whatever milk you'd like. And the first thing we're gonna start with is our pink cold foam. So I mixed the oat milk with our reserved liquid and put it in my Araschino. It has a cold foam function if you just hold down the button and let it turn blue. That's how you know it's doing cold foam. But of course, if you don't have an Araschino, you can put your milk and your reserved liquid in a jar and just shake it up until it's nice and frothy. Next, I got out my matcha powder. I got this matcha powder at Home Goods, so it is pre-sweetened, and I find that I don't really need that much to make a good matcha. After I did that, I added in my oat milk and stirred everything up to make sure it was all nice and dissolved. And then I also added in my ice. Now, I had some leftover ice cubes from when Leslie was here, and they're actually heart-shaped, which I think is so cute. And then I also put in a little bit of my strawberry jam in the bottom of my matcha, just so when I'm drinking it, I can get that extra hit of strawberry flavor. Once my cold foam was ready, I poured it over the top, and that was it. Now, I know there are some people out there that might think it's silly to spend this much time on a drink or a treat or even on a holiday like Valentine's Day, and that's okay. But for me, I have found it to be essential. Romanticizing these small corners of life is really what keeps me going. Especially with everything going on in the world today, it is so easy to get compassion fatigue. And if chronic illness has taught me anything over the years, it's that there's no shame in taking a break. Because in reality, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if your heart is feeling extra heavy these days, I invite you to take a break. Have that cute little drink and that sweet little treat so you can come back stronger the next day.
I am so glad I gave that another try because look, It is so cute. I should have done danishes all along, and I actually dusted it with powdered sugar in the end because I feel like, especially for Valentine's Day, it just adds that extra bit of magic, and I'm pleased as punch, and I can't wait to eat this and enjoy my iced matcha. But I do want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video or you found it helpful, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Calm down, there's no more second guessing.
Oh my god, that is so good!